Hey everyone, welcome to our channel. Today, get ready for a tough topic, because we're diving into a complicated and uncomfortable issue: urban ugliness in Latin America. Have you noticed how the simple act of calling a place ugly sparks strong reactions? On one hand, there are those who fiercely defend it, and on the other, those who readily agree. Get ready for a journey through 10 Latin American countries that sadly seem to have forgotten about beauty, organization, and the well-being of their people. But in the end, beauty is a subjective enigma, an illusion shaped by the eye of the beholder. Even so, let's be honest, some destinations seem to defy any concept of harmony, displaying scenes that oscillate between neglect and chaos. Whether due to precarious infrastructure, forgotten urban planning, or the uncomfortable touch of negligence, there are places that test the limits of what can be considered beautiful. And that's why today, The Hidden Truth takes you on a tour of the 10 most controversial countries in Latin America. But before the flames of discord consume the comments, let's make one thing clear. This list does not question the cultural richness, history, or strength of its people. On the contrary, today's analysis is based on factors such as urban planning, conservation, infrastructure, reports, and accounts from those who live in or have visited these places. Nothing prevents you from discovering an unexpected charm in the gastronomy, the hospitality, or in a hidden landscape, and ending up completely disagreeing with our selection. Ready? Now that we've made that clear, let's embark on this journey through destinations that challenge traditional aesthetics. Number 10. Our first stop is in Suriname, a country that seems to have lost its ways, its Google Maps, its compass, everything in the middle of the road to urban organization. A territory shrouded in mystery, a country that few remember and even fewer visit. Hidden in the northern tip of South America, Suriname remains on the margins of tourism, ignored by much of the world. But for those who dare to explore it, the first impression is a clash of contrasts. On the one hand, an exuberant biodiversity, dense forests, stealthy jaguars, vibrantly colored macaws, and dolphins of unusual hues. On the other, an urban scenario that dissolves any trace of charm. The capital, Paramaribo, boasts the UNESCO seal, but its colonial buildings are crumbling under the weight of time and neglect. Streets full of potholes, chaotic traffic, and a disorganization that makes the city seem like a forgotten echo of a glorious past. The feeling of abandonment and precariousness extends throughout the country, making Suriname a destination that could be magnificent, but remains adrift between promise and ruin. And from Suriname we take a direct flight to Honduras, a country that, despite having breathtaking landscapes truly incredible, hides a brutal reality behind the Instagram photos. A place where reality is shaped by the eyes of the beholder. For some, a paradise of pristine beaches, coral reefs, and Mayan vestiges that tell secrets of ancient civilizations. For others, a stage where beauty gives way to disorder. Tegucigalpa, the capital, is a labyrinth without logic, constructions erected without criteria, traffic on the verge of collapse, pollution, and chaotic public transport. But the greatest weight that falls on Honduras is not visual, but the constant feeling of danger. Armed gangs dictate the rules in the shadows, holding entire neighborhoods hostage to fear and neglect. The contrast between the luxurious resorts and the cities dominated by chaos is evident, making Honduras a destination where every step must be carefully chosen, a country that oscillates between breathtaking landscapes and an urbanism that suffocates any charm. And our adventure now takes us to El Salvador, a country that, like its neighbors, also suffers from violence. Small on the map, but full of contrasts. Its beaches attract surfers from all over the world, but just one closer look is enough to realize that its cities tell a different story. San Salvador is desperately trying to modernize, driven by recent security policies, but it still bears deep scars. Power grids hang in the air like chaotic cobwebs, streets are a collection of patches and potholes, and historic buildings oscillate between nostalgic charm and absolute neglect. Rampant deforestation over the decades has transformed once green landscapes into arid mountains, battered by time. But, as in any place that resists, there is hope. Revitalization projects are emerging here and there, trying to rescue a country that oscillates between the spectacular and the neglected. And from the chaos of El Salvador, we land in Paraguay, a country that seems to be stuck in alarm snooze mode. A cultural enigma surrounded by stories of struggle and resistance. Unlike its neighbors, which boast paradisiacal beaches and colossal mountains, Paraguay has a discreet beauty, often ignored. Its cities are rarely described as charming, and Asuncion, the capital, seems like a duel between the past and the present. Historic buildings try to maintain their charm, but are surrounded by unplanned constructions, crowded streets, and sidewalks that look more like an obstacle course. And behind this disordered aesthetic, a past of tragedies shapes the country. The War of the Triple Alliance, a brutal conflict against Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay, almost extinguished the nation, leaving scars that still resonate. Decades later, another war, this time against Bolivia, deepened the wounds. Paraguay, however, never surrendered. Its people are welcoming, its culture is rich and authentic, and its identity resists. Between chaotic streets and little explored tourism, Paraguay remains a destination that, for those who dare to look beyond the surface, holds unexpected secrets. And so we continue this journey through countries that challenge the concept of traditional beauty. But are ugliness and neglect always synonymous? Or is there a hidden strength in these places that escapes the inattentive eye? The answer may lie in the experience of those who venture there. Have you ever visited any of these countries? Did you see anything that challenged this narrative? Do you know anyone who has a different view? Our next stop is Nicaragua, number 6 on this list. This country was once the darling of Central America, but today it struggles to recover from poverty and inequality. The cities, once vibrant, a territory shaped by forces as primitive as the volcanoes that dominate its landscape. Huge lakes reflect the sky, but also stories of conflict, scars etched in the chaotic architecture of Managua. The capital, hastily rebuilt after the great earthquake of 1972, lacks a defined center, as if its soul had been scattered along with the rubble. For the visitor, the city may seem like a maze of disordered streets, where neglect is reflected in unfinished buildings and corners forgotten by time. Political instability has only aggravated the degradation, leaving public infrastructure at the mercy of decay. But there is something implacably beautiful about this country, and it is not in the cities. The islands of Ometepe, rising above the water, look like lost kingdoms, formed by the fury of two twin volcanoes. For their part, the beaches of the Pacific, still little explored, attract surfers in search of untamed waves and virgin landscapes. Thus, Nicaragua reveals itself, raw, intense, immersive. Don't expect luxury or charming urban settings, expect the unpredictable. And from Nicaragua, we continue our journey to Bolivia, a country full of colors, flavors, and contrasts. Here, cultural richness shares space with extreme poverty. On the one hand, landscapes that defy reality, like the Salar de Uyuni, where the earth merges with the sky in a hypnotic immensity. On the other, cities whose aesthetics seem like a mixture of improvisation and chaos. La Paz, nestled between mountains, impresses, but not for its conventional beauty. It is a labyrinth of hills covered with unrendered brick constructions, piled up as if defying gravity. The scene reaches its extreme in El Alto, a city where everything seems unfinished. Dusty streets stretch for miles, and the thin air makes every step felt in the lungs. The frantic traffic and pollution aggravate the urban experience, making it a test of endurance. But not everything is desolation. Bolivian culture beats vibrantly in chaotic markets, where the cholas, dressed in voluminous skirts, walk among stalls offering everything from spices to ancestral potions. Bolivia challenges and rewards. It is not a destination for the faint of heart, but for those seeking unfiltered authenticity. And from Bolivia, we take a direct flight to Cuba, a country that arouses mixed reactions. There are those who get lost in the nostalgic charm of its colonial architecture, the classic colorful cars, and the music that resonates on every corner. But there are also those who leave the island with a somber look, marked by the brutal contrast between the decadent charm and the harsh reality of the potholed streets and buildings corroded by time. Decades of embargo and lack of investment have paralyzed Havana in a kind of architectural limbo, where peeling facades seem to be on the verge of collapse. Beyond the postcards, entire neighborhoods live under the weight of neglect, with buildings barely standing. The situation worsens in the less privileged areas, where the shortage of materials makes any repair an unattainable luxury. But if the urban disappoints, Cuban nature rescues the fascination. Varadero displays crystal-clear waters that seem unreal, while the interior of the country is home to impressive valleys and mountains. Cuba is a country that is felt on the skin, between splendor and ruin, between past and present. And from vintage Cuba, we head to Guatemala, number 3 on our list. We move on to third place and find Guatemala, a country of breathtaking beauty and an urbanism that does not do justice to its nature. Land of imposing volcanoes and Mayan temples, Guatemala is dressed in mystery and history, but its capital, Guatemala City, tells a different story, that of disorderly growth neglected by decades of corruption. Those who arrive there find neglected streets, dilapidated buildings, and a scenario where urban planning seems to have been forgotten. There are neighborhoods that breathe insecurity and poverty, and inequality screams from every corner. On the one hand, modern skyscrapers. On the other, suburbs that seem forgotten by time. For this reason, many visitors treat the city only as a stopover, going directly to the true jewels of the country, the magical Antigua Guatemala, Lake Atitlan, the grandiose ruins of Tikal. Guatemala can be charming, but only for those willing to look beyond the worn concrete of its capital. And from Guatemala, we head to Venezuela, a country going through one of the biggest crises in its history. If we were a few decades ago, Venezuela would never have appeared on this list. The country, once a symbol of prosperity in Latin America, is today a reflection of collapse. Caracas, which once shone as a modern metropolis, now resembles a ghost town, marked by potholed streets, buildings that look like living ruins, and a public system on the verge of collapse. Traffic is a battlefield of honking horns and exhausted engines. Crime turns routine into a game of survival. Basic services fail without warning. Electricity, water, transportation, everything depends on volatile luck. Many Venezuelans have left the country, leaving once vibrant neighborhoods in a state of decay. But as bleak as the urban reality is, Venezuela is still home to natural treasures of incomparable beauty. The Los Roques archipelago is a virgin paradise, where the blue of the sea merges with the white sand, and the Angel Falls, the highest waterfall in the world, defies gravity in the middle of the jungle. A country of extremes, where ruin and wonder coexist. And we come to number 1 on our list, where our journey ends in Haiti, the country that, sadly, always ranks first in poverty in the Americas, marked by disasters and instability, where hope is a daily challenge. Port-au-Prince was already facing difficulties. But after the earthquake in 2010, the city was transformed into a post-apocalyptic scene. Buildings collapsed and were never rebuilt, streets were filled with rubble, and basic infrastructure collapsed in such a way that sanitation, electricity, and drinking water are rare privileges. The smell of accumulated garbage dominates the air, while violence has become a constant threat. Rampant deforestation has left the mountains arid and vulnerable to natural disasters, making life even more difficult. But Haiti is more than its pain. Its culture, rooted in African and European influences, survives with strength. The vibrant music, the crafts, the ritual dances, everything resists like a cry of identity. The Haitian people, despite everything, possess a resistance that impresses. Among the ruins, there is still life, and that perhaps is the greatest testament to its strength. And so we conclude our tour of countries that challenge conventional aesthetics. What about you? Have you been to any of these destinations? Do you agree with the ranking, or was your experience completely different? Leave your comment and share your point of view. If you like this content, follow us for more lists, curiosities, and reflections about the world around us. See you next time.